G'day ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Draw with Jazza. I'm Jazza and today I'm going to experiment with watercolors. That might not sound like the most daring thing in the world, but I am very inexperienced with watercolors. I think my last living memory of using watercolors was something like this, that whole dry tray version of watercolors, which I think I played with for a very short period of time when I was about 13. So, as an adult now, I am in unfamiliar territory. So I just wanted to disclaim that in opening up this video because I make art 3 times a week here on Draw with Jazza, and most of the time it's either with things that wouldn't be considered art supplies, so it doesn't matter if it messes up, or it's in things that I'm familiar with or experimenting with that I'm more naturally good at. So I don't even know how I'm gonna go, but that's my disclaimer. That said, we're gonna have fun today and I'm interested to, I don't know, learn some new things. Now, fortunately, I'm not treading unknown territory alone. Skillshare have sponsored this video, and those of you who have been around for a while know that Skillshare are big friends of the channel and a really great place that I can recommend to you guys to learn new skills. Skillshare is a huge and powerful learning resource. They have over 18,000 courses in illustration, drawing, painting, design, business, and the list goes on. Not to mention my own personal course on Skillshare, shameless plug, on YouTube, on how to do YouTube. There really are a huge variety of courses on Skillshare and you can get access to all of them for 3 months for only 99 cents. That's right, less than $1, and you have 3 months to really sink your teeth into the platform and see how much you love it. So click the link in the card and in the description to get started today. I've been using some courses on Skillshare to familiarize myself with watercolors from people who know how to use watercolors. So if you want to follow along with the classes that I've watched so far, I started off with the basic techniques video, which is completely free, which you can actually get just with an account. If you get access to their premium membership and courses, which again I recommend with the link in the card and in the description, the 3-step watercolor painting with layered washes course is something that I found really helpful and very informative and interesting. And then there's also a really cool course called Watercolor Textures for Graphic Design. So I'm going to link to those 3 courses in the description. Feel free to go check them out and follow along with me. So if you're looking to learn something specific like watercolor, once again, can't recommend Skillshare enough. So in today's video, I'm going to break it up into sort of 2 chunks. The first chunk, I'm going to play around with the materials I have with me. Once again, I'm a noob and I don't know what I like to work with yet. And a lot of the videos I've been watching and the courses I've been following sort of talk about finding the fit for you when it comes to your materials. I haven't done that yet, so I'm going to play around and do that. Then after I find the material and the brushes that are a good fit for me, I have a bunch of brushes over here. I don't know what's good for what, again, because I'm a noob. I'm going to set up and try and make a really epic piece. And my goal by the end of this video and the end of today is to have an artwork created almost entirely with watercolor that I can be really proud of and feel like I've explored the medium in a way that I've learnt some new things and had a lot of fun. And hopefully you guys coming along for the ride will have a bit of fun with me. Now, before I could make an artwork with this stuff, I needed to learn a little bit more about what it does. So starting off with a tubed variety of watercolors, I played around with different blends, mixing a few complementary colors, a few contrasting colors, and just generally fiddled around with how they felt to work with. I found these tubed colors to be really fun and easy to mix. I loved how saturated they could be going down, but I did find them a bit trickier to apply in a predictable way, as they go down so wet in order to dilute them enough to get a soft color. Now, I am a noob, of course, so there's plenty of stuff I could be doing wrong, but out of the 3, I did find this took the longest to dry. Next came the tray variety, and I must say I underestimated this one. I think because it's the kind of watercolor tray that we see and use from childhood, and of course it was the cheapest of the 3 by far. And yet the smoothness of the application was really pleasant. The colors were vibrant and mixed really well both on paper and on the palette, and I felt like I had much more control over the outcome, which also dried quicker due to being applied in thinner layers. So that was all really interesting to note. Finally, my little waxy watercolors. These are something of an enigma to me, and I'm sure, by the way, that how I talk about these watercolors will infuriate the veterans out there, so please take this video as a kind of first impressions experience with the medium for people who are inexperienced with it themselves, or of course maybe just an opportunity to watch me struggle with something new. Anyway, I found these watercolors to be kind of weird to apply to the brush, but their effect on the paper was nice. I sort of felt that they were a bit of a halfway between the earlier two watercolors, with a nice textured effect in their application without being too difficult to predict. Although I did feel like with this kind of watercolor, building up any higher levels of contrast or deeper sort of shadows might be more time-consuming or difficult compared to the other two kinds of watercolors. This is obviously my first impressions, but I am surprised by how substantially different each of these methods of watercolor just went down on paper and mixed into each other. So the first is this tube-based watercolor. I love the cloudy effects and textures that watercolor can get, but I wasn't able to really get them with this. That aside, there are some really cool parts of this. The ability to get some real strength in the colors that go down, adding some shade, and even using a white liquid watercolor to do some highlights is really useful. Anyways, that was my experiment with that. Let's move on to my second experiment with watercolor, and that was this little tray. Now, this is interesting because this is obviously the cheapest of all of the watercolors I have. This was, I think, like $4. Like, it's not a fancy watercolor set, but the colors are really nice, and I'm surprised, like genuinely surprised by how well they blend and how clean and smooth the colors go down. Obviously not as good for, you know, if I want to get some real strength or depth in there, and obviously you're not going to be able to create much in the way of highlights with the white. Which brings me to my third and final experimentation with watercolor, which is this. I don't even know what form of watercolor this is called. This is I guess that's the brand, Watercolor Aquarelle Fine. Please, those of you who actually know what this stuff is, forgive my ignorance, but hey, I'm trying new things, so bear with me here. These little pods contain like these waxy little bricks that you use as watercolors, and as you can see, this is the example that gets the coolest texture and the nicest mix of the cloudy effects that I keep referring to, particularly in this gradient here. It's just really nice and even. I love that texture. That is one of my favorite parts of watercolor imagery. As you can see, I got some nice depth here as well, and it dried relatively fast. I did get some accidental cloud sort of edging in some places, which I am not a huge fan of if it's not intentional. So that leaves me in a place where I feel like there's a bit of everything I kind of like, and I didn't expect that. I genuinely expected there to be one of these three experiments that would be my favorite, and I am surprised by how the first one, the liquid watercolor, is probably one of my least favorites. I actually expected it to be my #1 favorite. So I'm ready to jump forwards into creating a piece, planning first and then executing on something. Hopefully it turns out cool. And I'm gonna use a mix of each of these mediums, which I didn't expect to intend to do. For anything with a more clean gradient or effect I want to use, particularly if there's like a person or object that I want to look nice and solid and clean, I'm gonna move on to this. And then for the real deep shadows and highlights, I'm gonna use some of my liquid watercolor. I mean, I guess watercolor by nature is liquid. I'm obviously not a professional watercolor artist, but you know what? I'm having fun. Let's get stuck into it. I began by playing around with some thumbnail sketches at first, wanting to set some basic composition ideas up on paper without over-committing to an idea too early. I wanted something whimsical that would really allow me to play with a mix of magical colours, so I was really drawn to fairies and forests in theme, cherubs and berries and gnomes and such. And look, if you watch my videos often, you'll know that I'm not often inclined to create these kind of Wonderland-esque themes, but hey, trying a new medium out has me wanting to explore different themes as well, so that alone is a pretty nice reason to experiment, I guess. I played with some simple mixes of colours on top of my thumbnails, and as you can tell, nothing is very clear or detailed. It's all really suggestive and simple. I wanted to make sure that every thumbnail was really different in the end, in both composition and colour, so that I felt like I had, properly stretched myself before settling in one direction. In the end, I opted to create an image of a forest cherub presenting a flower to a fairy, playing around with a sense of scale, with the flower being a bit of a key to seeing that the figures in the image are very small, small, even able to fit in the palm of our hand perhaps. I moved forward with the piece feeling quite confident, honestly. I think due to my initial experimentation with the paints and the ideas, that really sort of bolstered my confidence, but especially after watching Renato Palmudi's Skillshare course on painting with layered washes. It really helped me understand a great mechanism for approaching an actual piece in stages. So I followed that advice throughout my piece, painting one layer at a time and only picking up on the next when the previous layer was completely dry. Also worth noting to you guys is that in the end, out of the mediums that I played around with, most of the piece was painted, especially very early on, with the simple tray watercolor set, which is kind of cool to know as well for people who want to play with watercolors, just to see that really you can just pop down to your nearest Kmart or art supply store and get some discount watercolors, and you can get some stuff that looks really cool. That is, of course, with the exception of later in the piece, I did get into laying down some of the finer details and the contrast in the piece using mostly the tube watercolor paints. Mainly because I found those tube paints a little trickier to work with in broader areas, but really nice to work with when applying details and highlights and shadows. So here it is, ladies and gentlemen. This is the result of my returning experiment with watercolors. I really felt in unfamiliar territory, especially at the beginning. The Skillshare course has helped a lot, and of course getting my hands dirty helped a lot. Also taking things incrementally and trying things out, let alone trying the actual various kinds of watercolors out as well, all sort of helped me build some confidence with the medium by the end. Now, of course, I am by no means an expert. I don't in any way claim that, but for essentially what I feel is sort of a first go, I'm really happy with this as my final piece, and I feel like there's a lot I can learn, but I also feel like I learned a lot today and had a lot of fun in the process too. I hope you enjoyed the result of the piece. You can get it, by the way, if you want to. I'll make it available in my print shop. I'll put the link in the description, so if you like this, feel free to get a poster, I don't know. And if you want to try your hand at something new, whether it be watercolor like this, or graphic design, or building your own business, cinematography, textiles, the list goes on, Skillshare is an amazing place to do that. The link is in the card and in the description to go check it out and get 3 months of premium membership to all of their courses for only 99 cents. And of course, you can teach yourself. I plan to do some more teaching myself. I have a course coming out in about a month, so stay tuned for that. While you're over there, make sure to check out the course I've already released on being a YouTuber, which you may find interesting. That's it for this video, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for watching. I had a lot of fun, and I really hope you enjoyed this process as well. It's also the kind of artwork I tend to not be, I don't know, motivated to do in the mediums I'm used to, but because I was trying something different in a medium, I was also trying something different in theme, and I'm really glad I did. I think it's a really sweet little piece. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to Draw with Jazza for more fun with art 3 times a week. And until next time, I'll see you later. Make sure to subscribe to my channel to see more of my videos. And while you're at it, check out my shop where I sell ebooks, brushes, photo references, video courses, and more. There's another video you might enjoy from my channel over there, and you can also check out my behind the scenes daily vlog channel, Daily Jazza. That's it for now, and until next time, I'll see you later.